for all of our missteps, for all of our ails, for all of the mistakes, for all of that, crypto and Bitcoin are like a headline political issue in an incredibly important election come November. That's almost amazing that we've screwed up as bad as we have and still are so much in the driver's.
Today's episode is brought to you by Akash Network, the world's premier decentralized compute marketplace. Check out Akash to buy and sell computing resources securely and efficiently. Purpose-built for public utility at akash.network. All right, welcome in everybody into another space here from Coinage. I'm the host of Coinage, Zach Guzman, coming to you live from our Brooklyn studios in New York City, the home of the only community-owned media DAO steered by our NFT holders and backed by the co-founder of Netflix. And today we are digging into a crypto vibes recession with someone who is always, I think, one of the best speakers when it comes to just, the vibes, the feeling in crypto and all of Web3. Travis Kling, the founder of Ikigai Asset Management, back on Coinage with us. Travis, good to see you, man.
Pleasure to have you. Pleasure to be here, Zach, rather.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like you've graduated to a co-host, my friend. So I think it's fair to say you got me on the show today. No, thank you for taking the time. As always, well, basically every month, it seems like you've been highlighting the big headlines in crypto, kind of where the space in general is at with your posts. And your latest one is out now, kind of looking at what you're calling the quiet quitting, the rise of quiet quitting in crypto, this idea of just, building on the nihilism in the space. What made you want to talk about that and kind of give us a sense of the thread that everyone should read, but kind of where you think vibes are at right now?
Yeah, I wrote it because I had, a couple dozen people communicate to me basically some version of that. That I would say that long form post was an amalgamation of feelings and actions that I had had conversations about with just a number of people recently in crypto. And I think I was feeling some amount of that myself, and just there were enough people that were just talking about the same sorts of things that it seemed like it had to be a trend. And earlier this year, I wrote I wrote a piece in February 1st and a piece March 1st. The February 1st was a lack of pretense that any of this shit does anything or will ever do anything. March 1st was financial nihilism, the zeitgeist of young America. Those are like the two most widely read long form things I've ever done. I've been writing in the space for a long time. And they really struck a chord with people, really, really struck a chord with people. And this quiet quitting, as I was talking to more people and this thing was just coming up in conversation and just seeing it in various different places, it was pretty apparent to me that this is connected to those two things. This lack of pretense and the financial nihilism theses. Like this quiet quitting thing is like a next step to that, a progression from that. And so I just wanted to write about it because I try and call a spade. I think to the extent that I've got a voice or a reputation in this space, I think it is in a lot of cases just for just calling it like I see it. So
yeah, no, I think we've discussed why we've arrived here and all the things that have led into it. And I think you and I have been kind of on the same page around why vibes are down. And it's not all price, by the way. It's mostly, I think, the incentive structures and the way that the space has built around what a lot of people have been calling out in terms of quiet dumping, if you want to call it that, from VCs. And just the general idea that you can't have value accrual to holders or to backers to retail. It all has to go to these VCs. And I feel like that's where Coinage came from, was this idea of building a DAO co-op where other people could kind of buy in and also see the opportunity to grow with the project. We'll get into that later on. But I also just kind of want to get your take on, I think, everything else as to why you think vibes are down, because it's not just price. Again, it's kind of the idea of we got into this to revolt, a revolution it was supposed to be in crypto, but now it's kind of like, where's the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to all of this tech actually leading to a revolt when you have so many Wall Street companies now bought into Bitcoin? What's next?
Yeah, there's a few one-liners. One of them I included in there was actually from Ari, Paul, to give him credit, which was I think the line is um, we've what was it? We've come so far while accomplishing so little. I think was the line or something like that, which that really resonated with me when I saw him say that. I retweeted that. I'd heard that from a lot of people. When I retweeted it, a lot of people were like, yep, feel that way. And that's the way it feels for me. And I just have gotten that sense from a lot of people, especially in the cycle that I came in, the kind of 17 class, because, we're now sort of pretty OG in crypto land. If you came in that time, been doing it in crypto terms a long time. If you came in the 17 class there, and we, the space has grown tremendously. Bitcoin has grown and had a lot of really good things happen for Bitcoin. The market cap has grown enormously. There's been in the neighborhood of $20 billion of venture capital that is poured into the crypto space over the last, 5-6 years. And stable coins, enormous proliferation of stable coins. I don't know what the total stable coin market cap is right now. It's, I don't know, 200 billion or something like that. And I think you look at all of that, and that feels like we've come so far. And then when you look past Bitcoin and you look past stable coins and you dig into sort of what else we have to show for ourselves, it gets pretty thin pretty quick. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the outlook, I think relative to just objectively sort of in September of 2024, how do we feel like things look going forward in crypto? There are some reasons to be optimistic, but there is not the broad optimism that we had in prior, I don't know, maybe we can talk about whether or not there's even a bull market or a bear market, but let's call it a bear market for alts. Let's just call it a bear market for alts, which I think is fair. Alts are underperforming Bitcoin by 50% on average year to date. Mm-hmm. They're down on average year to date. Bitcoin's up about 40% year to date. And it's like, even in periods of time historically, let's say second half 18, let's say second half 19, when we were in pretty deep bear markets, I think you still had broad brushstrokes of optimism, and you still had acute project specific excitement. And I think you have a lot less of that today, despite the fact that the market cap is literally more than 10x larger than it was during those periods that I just mentioned.
Yeah. And I'm just looking at kind of where, obviously, this kind of seems like an inverse when you mention stable coins. And obviously that's the thing, is like, who benefits from stablecoin adoptions? Most of the companies who are putting those stable coins out, and the market cap for stable coins essentially at an all-time high. But to your point on altcoins, and mostly where retail, I think, is, and certainly chart doesn't look like that. But I think even beyond it, right? And I think this is what your piece gets to and again, a great thread that everybody should read. It's more about, I think, what comes next, not necessarily what's played out over the last year, but more about why are we all here? I think is the main thing. And you yourself, you have lived through the FTX collapse. I was going back through because I was like, wait a minute, did we invite Travis to Coinage yet? So we just started a vote where, every month we send out membership tokens to people who want to join Coinage. And I was like, how do we not have Travis in this yet? So we just opened that one up. I hope you win our monthly nomination from our members. But I was going back through our old DMs, man, and it was like, we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of the FTX collapse, and just thinking about where we were for that. And you and I are still here. Uh, do you ask yourself like why you're still here even after everything that we've been through? Like I know we've talked about this a couple times, but it's just like looking ahead, looking forward, outside of Bitcoin, like you said, beyond it, there's not a lot of product market fit being proven outside of VCs enriching themselves. So what is it that keeps us here?
So I still believe in the potential of the technology to make the world a better place. I don't like to be so publicly pessimistic. It's not really in my nature. I think people that know me well would not call me a pessimist. I think people would call me a realist. Um, and I hate to be a guy that just complains all the time and doesn't provide solutions. Nobody likes that guy. I don't like that guy. I'm not trying to be that guy. But I'm one guy. I run a pretty small crypto fund, all things considering. And I think probably the thing that I can contribute most to this space is um, just ideas and trying to bring things to light and use a public voice to then create discourse. And that has been uh, the motivation for me to write this piece and the lack of pretense piece and the financial nihilism piece, because whether or not crypto fulfills all of, some of, or none of its potential to make the world a better place is going to be entirely dependent on the individuals that are working towards those various outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all kinds of different people that are in crypto for all kinds of different reasons. And I think what's become apparent to me is that sort of the good guys are getting their ass kicked by the bad guys. That was made blatantly obvious in 2022. In some ways, we're still dealing with the aftermath of the damage done in 2022. Like you said, 2 years on, we're in this hangover. There's like a leadership vacuum where so many of the most powerful, important, wealthiest people in crypto, committed crimes, are in jail, had such unbelievably bad risk management that they blew up their entire business and into oblivion, bankruptcy. And there's still a sort of leadership vacuum, and some of this quiet quitting feeling is a function of this ecosystem collectively not understanding where we're rowing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where are we rowing as an ecosystem? And there's always been different directions. And obviously there's been infighting and tribalism. That's been here for the entire time that I've been in this thing.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be totally unreasonable to expect that to go away. But there was an underlying directional optimism that is lacking right now. And I think it is going to be a responsibility of the good actors in this space to try and just kind of rally the troops and to get people more aligned and to change some of the self-regulatory, like there's like market structure problems in crypto, right? I mean, you mentioned the VC thing earlier. I mentioned it earlier as well too. As long, or it's in the tweet thread, I talk about it. And like, as long as that is still in place, we're going to struggle as an ecosystem. We're going to struggle to have community. We're going to struggle to onboard a whole new cycle of investors. That's another thing that people feel right now that's a part of quiet quitting, is that we have not even come remotely close to bringing in the amount of people that we did last cycle. It's not even close. We've brought in very few new people. Very few.
I mean, if you put all the pieces together too in your piece, it might be a very good thing that we've brought in fewer people in the cycle. If you think about what they could have been exposed
We're not
to,
ready.
because
I agree.
there's
We're not ready.
There's another NFT piece that just came out looking at kind of how performance has been there. And you could probably lump a lot of the altcoin projects into the same bucket as the NFT projects in terms of pure speculation, no value accrual to the tokens in a way that you would expect a lot of governance tokens that let people vote on, I don't know what. But this idea, and it might be perhaps where you and I might disagree. And again, there's only one small point that I'm like, I hope Travis is wrong about this, and it's kind of where I quit to kind of get ahead of it a little bit. And this is getting deep into the inside baseball weeds of our project, but I think it's important. It was this part of the tweet thread, which I have up. You're kind of talking about something to be optimistic about is this idea of a Trump win in November, because it might change this idea of all these projects being afraid of the structure of letting value accrual happen for token holders, right? And I think that that's part of the reason why we've seen this battle and this idea of is it not a security? I think the crypto world weirdly got obsessed with that idea and played right into Gary Gensler's hand of, first of all, accepting that everything could be a security. So the game was just stay away from anything looking like a security. So we saw a bunch of meme coins pop up as jokes, but similarly also then offered no value accrual to their tokens. It was all just a big joke. And it's like, that cannot be the only answer here. And I don't think the space wins if you have to wait for the SEC to give the all clear, which is where Coinage came from. And the idea of being a co-op and the idea of being co-ops are exempt, by the way, fun fact in the US, from securities rules. It's an exemption that REI and other cooperatives have enjoyed because you're not in that sandbox, as it were. And so I think a lot of people have been afraid of going down that path because it's not what works to make VCs rich. Here we are. I'm not saying Coinage is the end-all be-all, but it is an option. And I'm excited to see where it goes. But outside of that, I do think there is a building optimism and excitement around Trump winning in the crypto space in general, and you're seeing that from maybe all the other leaders.
Sorry, I picked it up in a second. I've got a question for you. Do you know, I assume you got legal counsel that helped you do that, right?
Yes. It's been a long battle to get here at this point. I mean,
and do you have a sense of why more crypto projects have not gone down the same legal route that you went down from a structure perspective?
I think there are others, by the way. I don't know if you've seen Song a Day Man, who's also suing the SEC. But he similarly, I met him out at ETH Denver a couple of years ago. There's like 8 co-op DAOs in the US. Okay. One of them being the people who back ETH Denver, Spork DAO. Same legal team, same ideas. What can you do if you create a US entity here and let people buy into it and create memberships around it? It's more complicated. You know, as we've spent a year working on this and figuring it out. So I can see why people don't want to do it. There's also tax questions that arise from it. So it's a pain in the ass. Look, I'm not going to say it's not a pain in the ass to do crypto in the US. We all know that. You know that. I know that. But it's like, what is the goal? To your earlier point, is what are we really trying to do here? Are we trying to create anything real that gives value back to the members who back you? Or are we trying to create a token that a VC can dump? And I think that is historically, if you're operating it with your own intentions and own upside in mind, you're going to go the VC route because that works. And it's not going to not work until maybe people like you and me become so mad at the idea of a slow dump that eventually we have to call people out for it. Yeah. And I don't know if we ever get there, but I do think it's wrong for a lot of people in the space to sit there and say the only way we win is if we declare every token not a security. And I don't think that's what you're saying, because I think there's a lot of people who would agree that there are some things that look like securities in this space, including NFT projects, as it may be. Just throwing that out there. Yeah. But in general, I think there is so much anger that's built up now. I'm pretty sure that that's why the excitement for Trump is here. And maybe I'll let you expand on that, because if someone's punching you in the face, at some point you want to punch back, I think is the general vibe from the crypto space.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so much uncertainty around how a Harris administration, she's just been silent, right? There was like that one-off Financial Times article talking about a reset. There was like which was extremely nondescript. There was another completely nondescript, I think, Bloomberg article that was out like 2 weeks ago or something like that. There was like even more, word salad, non-event kind of deal. And it's continued to be silent since then. You hear about a couple things. I saw Coinbase's GC. He did an interview a couple days ago where he was saying he had like been on the phone with some people from the Harris administration, but we haven't seen anything. And obviously Harris is the vice president in the current administration, and we know how adversarial the current administration has been towards crypto. And so that is what is, and then so you have that on one hand, and then you sort of juxtapose the Trump administration on the other hand, and I think probably everybody's aware, but you can just go down the laundry list of the things that have been supportive out of a Trump administration for crypto and for Bitcoin. He was obviously the keynote speaker at the Bitcoin Nashville conference, said all kinds of stuff, great supportive stuff. JD Vance is his running mate. JD Vance is a Bitcoin believer. He's a Gary Gensler hater. He owns Bitcoin personally. Vivek is a fan of Bitcoin and not a fan of Gary Gensler. RFK Jr. said he has like a large portion of his net worth in Bitcoin. He said that at the Bitcoin Nashville conference. I guess that's true. I hadn't seen the numbers. JD Vance, you've seen some of the numbers because he had to report it because he's in Congress. But and so that all of that, it creates this big divide between sort of what the expectations are for how much better life would be under a Trump administration for crypto and Bitcoin than under a Harris administration, even though the Harris administration is kind of a big question mark. So you don't really know exactly how wide that gap is. And in theory, she could say some things, I really doubt it's going to come up in the debate next week because I just don't think it's a big enough topic.
Yeah.
But certainly, over the course of this month and next month, she could do, or her administration could do any number of things to get some language out there about being supportive of crypto. I have no idea how to weight the likelihood of that. I also don't know how to weight the likelihood that Gensler would remain SEC chair in the event of a Harris win. I don't know that. It's not 100%. And I really just don't know how to weight the likelihood of that. So, but he's obviously definitely gone if Trump wins. So.
Yeah, I think everyone's in that same camp of trying to determine how realistic this reset is. There's a lot of people watching the Harris camp now saying that, the reset was her being more aggressive against crypto, and this was news that was covered this week actually, in terms of the Fed issuing a cease and desist order to United Texas Bank over crypto-related concerns, somewhat echoing maybe some of the past choke point 2.0 occurrences that we've seen where feds go after a bank that is servicing crypto clients, basically calling out some issues and saying you can't service them anymore, unbanking the industry. We've seen that playbook before, and so maybe not surprising that people might come out and say, Kamala Harris isn't actually down with a reset for crypto at all. But it might be fair to say, look, she's on the campaign trail, she's VP, doesn't really directly control either maybe ongoing things from the past and effort that's been put in at the SEC in their cases or at the Federal Reserve for things like this. So I'm not sure. I know everyone wants to read the headlines and be like, that means that she's definitely faking it. I don't know how real that might be, but certainly, as you said, there are a bunch of questions over, is there actually any sign of a 180 or even a 90? I'll take a half U-turn on changing policy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And going back to what we were talking about earlier with this idea that a de facto regulatory framework under a Trump administration being the sort of saving grace for crypto, I do believe in that. I do think that idea holds a lot of water. I do believe that the regulatory uncertainties and just hurdles and issues that we've had for years, specifically with the SEC, has hampered just altcoin projects because they've had to basically create worthless governance tokens to make sure that they're not securities. And then we do that for a while, and then the kind of cat gets all the way out of the bag about how worthless these governance tokens are. And then people just go, well, let's just stop pretending like the token does anything. or the technology itself does anything, and let's just start trading NFTs. Let's just start trading JPEGs, because at least we can remove this sort of pretend value accrual thing, and we can just trade baseball cards, basically. Okay, that's fine. And then you fast forward to the first part of this year, and then it's like, well, let's just do meme coins, because that's even just a step further in that general direction, and at least they're not securities. And then the meme coin mania got so out of hand and devolved so rapidly into such a, I mean, it's just a mess, right? Like it's just what a mess, and ridiculous, and sort of shining a light on the, worst parts of human nature, the worst parts of the crypto ecosystem, the most nihilistic, the most gambly, the most ridiculous, pointless. And then we had a spotlight on that for a while. And I think a lot of people bearing witness to how gross the meme coin mania was to watch. That's part of what's leading to this quiet quitting malaise that we find ourselves in. Mm-hmm. And so I think it is fair to put a real amount of blame on the lack of regulatory clarity. I think it is fair to say that there's at least, I would say, well-founded hope that you fast forward 12, 18 months after the election, assuming Trump wins, and you could see a number of alts that have changed their token structure based on a de facto regulatory framework or actual legislation getting passed, one or the other or both. And that could really change the ecosystem. And the last thing I'll say on that is, like, there was a couple people, this quiet quitting thing went pretty viral. And so I got a lot of feedback on it. And, I don't know, 90% of the feedback was people strongly agreeing with what I was saying. There was some feedback of people that said that crypto does not have a product market fit problem, and that it's all this regulatory thing. And that if it wasn't for these regulatory hurdles, that, things would be great with product market fit. And that's not true. That's just not true for crypto. No, we do have a product market fit. That, in many cases, in the best cases, they are solutions looking for problems. In many of the worst cases, they're just this sort of relentless, brutal grift. So
I think you're right. I mean, I think, again, our idea and kind of what we're doing, and Coinage isn't the first that we've launched at Trustless Media. We launched another one in the food space, working with food creators to let them and their fans kind of co-own the thing together, also a co-op. And the idea there being that, okay, we've seen meme coins explode. There is this idea of speculation, and speculation might not be a bad thing. People do it in markets all the time. But if you want to actually own something, legitimate co-own it with a creator, a meme coin's not going to deliver on it because there's no value accrual capture. So how do you actually do that? That's what we're working on, and I think it could work if you believe in the idea of read, write, own. You can't have own without some sort of value accrual capture. And so that's what we're trying to explore outside of just meme coin and pure speculation without capture. And I'm not sure that we found product market fit yet, but it's at least agreeing with the idea of what Web3 should be. So I agree with you there in terms of let's give it some time to see if this is going to manifest. And of course, you need to build a real business. So I'm excited with what we've done at Coinage. Outside of that, though, there is one element that you highlighted as maybe one to keep an eye on. And we talked about it before. Watch what I'm going to do here, Travis, because it's a rare opportunity. A segue sponsorship read. Wow. I want to give a shout out to our friends at Akash and say, thank you, Akash, for also playing a part in sponsoring what we're doing here, because it's brought to you by Akash Network, the world's premier decentralized compute marketplace. You can check out Akash to buy and sell computing resources securely and efficiently, purpose-built for public utility at akash.network. And I read that and use it as a segue to talk about the only maybe potential silver light. I'm not going to talk about Akash, but I will talk about other DePIN projects too, like Hivemapper. You and I have talked about that one before. And there's another one, Dawn, that's looking into like low bandwidth or low frequency Wi-Fi that could take on Amazon. Sorry, not Amazon, AT&T and Verizon. I think there is a lot going on in DePIN that does look surprising and maybe interesting. Based on your thread, I think you'd agree.
Yeah.
But until I think you get that value accrual piece figured out, I'm not sure if they exist the way that you would want them to. What's your take on DePIN?
Yeah, excited about it. I mean, I've highlighted it in the lack of pretense piece. I highlighted it again in this piece because it is, you know, when you start looking around in the crypto ecosystem of providing solutions for real world problems outside of Bitcoin and stable coins, that list gets so thin so fast relative to the market cap of all this stuff that it's honestly pretty frightening. But DePIN is an example where you're seeing solutions being provided for real world problems. You have, what I would say is pretty decent adoption. It's not certainly not great adoption by quote unquote real world standards. It's like if GPT is the platinum standard for adoption, we are not at 1% of GPT adoption for crypto projects, any specific crypto project. But like Helium's a great example. $20 a month. You got a data overflow. You've got a data subscription, $20 a month. That's super attractive. They're doing these overflows with major telecom networks where they're providing overflow coverage in places that need it. It's working, and so that's exciting. The thing that I worry about with DePIN is the token structures, again, being what I think is susceptible to blowing a big bubble and then collapsing, sort of basically in the same way as Axie Infinity,
Mm-hmm.
where the economics of the network for the people that are supplying the hardware and supplying, this Wi-Fi mesh network in the case of Helium,
Yeah.
those economics are more attractive the higher the price of H&T is. And the price of H&T is heavily beholden to speculation. And so what that does is it just makes it more likely to blow a big bubble, and then you get to the top of the cycle, and this is a very positive reflexivity type of thing, which reflexivity can be a good thing. But what can happen is that when you have a structural macro top in crypto, Fed starts tightening interest rates or whatever,
Yeah.
and Bitcoin goes down, 50, 75%, and all the rest of these alts go down 75 to 95%. Will that drop because all of the speculators, leave the ecosystem, and then you get into this bad negative reflexivity spiral that is just quite prohibitive to creating long-term sustainability in something like a 5G mesh network.
Yeah.
Does that make sense the way I
No,
explained
it does.
that?
It does
Okay.
make sense. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's partially maybe, again, what is the similarity between all the problems that you've kind of talked about in the altcoin space? It's that they have a coin, that they have a token. One of our other members in Coinage, Misha, shout out to him, was talking about Equilibrium, this other project that I've started to dig into. It's kind of interesting. Similar, trying to do things, but doesn't actually use a token because it doesn't use a blockchain. It's all very strange to me in terms of, I'm sorry, it does use a token, but it's not tied to its blockchain. So there is still some of that, and the tokens are only generated as the market usage grows. So it's a bit of a different take. But I do think if things aren't working, or we've seen the same playbook, and we've had years to see it now, as you said, if you're using a token that could be dumped and number go down, and it's not really tied to usage of a network sometimes, maybe that's not the right way to go. And so I haven't dug deeply into this project, but I think it's an important point to highlight, and perhaps to tie it back to Trump, maybe one we're talking about when it comes to the idea of him also now launching his own DeFi project, and perhaps also going down the same path of bringing up a token that could be dumped. I want to bring up the story because CoinDesk did a great job digging into what it looks like at World Liberty Financial, the Trump project. And just because you highlighted tokens, I should point out that according to their reporting, and they've looked at the white paper here, 70% of World Liberty Financial tokens are going to be going to insiders, which is a higher than normal allocation, certainly for a project. But I think maybe it points to, look, Trump's a guy that probably doesn't need to follow the same path that other projects have, and yet he's going to do it because that's become status quo. What would you say to that? And what are your initial thoughts on kind of the idea of Trump's DeFi project here?
Yeah, I mean, some of this stuff, it certainly feels quite scammy and quite grifty, right? It just feels that way. Having been in crypto for a long time and paid attention to Trump for a long time. You know, he did his, I think, third release of NFTs a couple weeks ago.
Now.
Yeah, I don't know how much total money. It's hard for me to imagine. It's like, how much money is he going to make off those NFTs? And it's just like, does he need the money so bad that he's like, I don't. Do you know off the top of your head, or maybe Texas?
I know that he's made more than $7 million off of the licensing deal, and I want to say the ether that he's been reported on having, which I think is another couple million. So you're looking at, call it 10 million from the idea of it.
That's a real number. Okay, so all right, so it's just a fundraising avenue. You're obviously only approaching a tiny slice of the electorate, right? Like, it's like there's the people that are going to be buying Trump NFTs,
that do not live in the U.S.
My mom's going to vote Republican. My mom's not going to vote. She's not buying a Trump NFT, right? So many cases like that, and so I think it's just a little. I guess maybe he's just trying to raise money. The only other thing that I thought of on this deal is why he's doing this is the election's going to come down to, it's like 12, 15 counties in 6 states, right? That's just a fact. Yeah. And maybe they have enough demographic granularity into some of those areas where they're like, I don't know, maybe there's just enough, they think there's enough crypto owners and supporters in that area that they feel like maybe they can get an extra few thousand votes in a few counties. And maybe there's some counties that are going to be decided by less than 10,000 votes. So they're just going, hey, we need to have something for the crypto folks to make sure we're doing everything we possibly can to get that vote. That's complete conjecture, total conjecture. But that was just another idea that I had when I was trying to understand why he would be doing these things that seem so strange.
Well, I think, you're definitely right to point that out.
One more thing I'll say. We know that Barron, right? Barron is sort of seems to be driving the bus on this stuff. Apparently he's a pretty big crypto fan. I don't know him personally. I know guys that are connected into him in one form or another. And so this, I don't know, maybe some of this is just I'm going to do, I'm looking to my son to help me understand the youngest voters. My son's telling me this is a good way to try and get some young voters. So, he likes crypto. So let's do some of this stuff.
Yeah. And we've certainly seen Eric and Don Jr. As well involved in World Liberty Financial. And so we'll see what happens. But it was kind of catching and surprising to see such a large token allocation for insiders and some of the details in that CoinDesk piece. Sam Kessler, great reporting, by the way. But also, Farley Dickinson, to your point on kind of Trump leaning into the crypto piece, this is something that I think has become relatively clear in terms of taking the lead. And you saw it, you mentioned it at Bitcoin conference down in Nashville. According to their poll, I think he's got a pretty substantial, it's a 12-point lead, according to this FDU poll, for Trump when it comes to crypto voters. 12-point lead over Kamala in that specific subsect. To your point, no one really knows how large that voting block is going to be this election. And certainly Kamala does have the lead when you look at non-crypto holders. It's basically the same in the opposite direction, 50-38, 53-41. But it does seem to be a calculated move on the Trump campaign part to really lean into this. I just don't know if any of that would be undercut by Kamala Harris shifting pro-crypto all of a sudden. And I don't think it makes the same political sense. So I sometimes am looking at it as if crypto people are going to be disappointed, but it's like, this is politics. Welcome to politics a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
So I don't know. Anyways, that's all interesting. Beyond it, though, looking ahead, what I would agree with you on one point. I don't like being the negative guy. Sometimes you got to be. And I'm glad we call out bad things in crypto. We got to do it. But looking ahead, I do want to end on a positive note, if we can, if it's even possible for you sometimes. For me, sometimes harder. Getting harder, Travis. But let's look at the positives here and where we go. Because, on the one hand, you do have Ethereum coming off its worst month in, I think, 2 years or something like that. It ain't looking good on the ETH front. We talked about it last time you were on. The ETH ETF kind of dead on arrival. What has you most positive in thinking that things could shift to wrap up 2024?
Well, to leave on an optimistic note, I mean, the thing that's honestly almost incredible to me is that for all of our missteps, for all of our ails, for all of the mistakes and the going down the wrong directions, for all of that, crypto and Bitcoin are still very important. They're still big. They're still headline. They still have a tremendous amount of attention on them. Bitcoin's worth $1 trillion and heading higher. The rest of the stuff's worth about $1 trillion. And crypto and Bitcoin are like a headline political issue in an incredibly important election come November. And that's almost amazing that we've screwed up as bad as we have and still are so much in the driver's seat. Crypto, it's still completely in the driver's seat. Yeah. And that's exciting. And if it's not hopeless. It does not feel hopeless to me. I think if I really thought it was hopeless, I would probably leave. I would probably go do something else. But it's not. There's still a tremendous amount of potential. And we just got to get some of these kind of foundational things, market structure stuff, self-regulatory stuff, kind of like social fabric type of stuff. I think we just got to get some of that figured out. And I'm hopeful. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be bummed if Harris wins. Not just for my bags, partially for my bags, but also just from a direction of the country perspective, and we don't have to get too much into that. But so I will say that a lot of my optimism does hang on the election. I think that's true for the direction of this ecosystem as well too. It's not like it's going to go away if Harris wins. I don't think that at all. But it'll just be another period of time that's going to be much tougher sledding than if we have a Trump win. So, but it's, we should all, those of us that are still involved in this, whether it's, quiet quitting the space or still fully involved or, somewhere in between, we should all just think of it as an opportunity that all of this is still as big of a deal as it is. And that we still have, an enormous just opportunity right in front of our face to have this technology fulfill its potential and make the world a much better place.
I like that note to leave it on. And, I have been chatting with Mark Cuban behind the scenes because he's been increasingly talking a little bit more about crypto and the election together. And I think you're right. I think obviously the market is showing that if Trump does win, it will be a net lift, I think, immediately for crypto projects. Again, I'm not entirely sure, whether or not just full on anything goes is necessarily going to be good for retail. And I'm not saying that would happen under a Trump administration either. But I do think for projects that are just trying to do this, the good actors, we do need to lift them up regardless. and call out bad actors, and no one, I think, has done a better job of that than you, and taking heat for it, by the way. But in general, I like ending it there, and I will say, too, that we have opened this vote. It just opened in nominating Travis Kling. Certainly, it will be my vote in that one for the August membership to go to you, my friend. I don't know why we didn't do it sooner. You've been on the show enough now at this point to be inside and involved in the project, so we'll see what happens there. Also, to your point on kind of how this all lifts things up, I think it's another thing I'm excited about. I don't know if you knew this, but we partner with Dike. We're running validators now on more than 40 chains. I want to give a quick shout out and thank you to everyone in our community who's been staking with us. This is another cool kind of value accrual capture, is all these rewards. We split them 50-50 with the Austrians who have been running the stack, and the other half goes in the DAO. So this is real value capture where the staking rewards go back to our community, and you don't need to stake with the big giants. And I'm excited to see that continue to grow. We do run an Akash validator too, so shout out to our sponsor, Akash. Travis, in general, man, thank you again for coming on. I think it'd be cool if you did them more than monthly, because I learn and feel seen every time I read your threads on these things. And so congrats again on kind of finding the voice and the pulse of the space, because that's hard to do. And I feel like everyone you've got is a banger each time. So well done.
I appreciate it, sir. Always a pleasure. We'll do it again soon.
All right, everybody. Travis Kling, the founder of Ikigai Asset Management there. Thank you again for tuning in. Per usual, you can catch the latest headlines, the biggest headlines in Web3 and crypto at coinage.media. Enjoying our project as well. There's a lot to cover as we approach the election. Certainly going to be more after the debate next week and the Fed decision to come after that. We'll also be carrying SEC Chair Gary Gensler's hearings for you live to wrap up the month as well. For Travis, for myself, that's going to do it. Thanks for tuning in.